Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us tonight, the Daily Mail's North East football correspondent Craig Hope and the Northern sports correspondent for the Times, Martin Hardy. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back page that's with us at the moment. The Guardian in early, featuring the image of Virgil van Dijk celebrating scoring Liverpool's second goal in the come-from-behind 3-1 win over Milan at the San Siro. Also carry the quotes from Rodri that we'll talk about there, with the guys that suffer. Rodri warning that players are close to striking over the amount of games played. And top left, 7 heaven, Rashford grabs 2 as rampant United paced poor Barnsley. Well, Martin, let's start, though, with that victory for Liverpool. Van Dijk has Reds ahead over Milan. Konate with the equaliser. Szoboszlai rounded off a comeback. How impressive a statement from Liverpool in the San Siro.
Given their defeat to Nottingham Forest at the weekend, bar the first 5 minutes of tonight's match, I think that was absolutely a perfect display for Arne Slot. The combination of Klopp power and Slot thought. They controlled the game after that bad start. I think by the finish, they had more than 20 attempts on goal. Cody Gakpo, coming from a wide left position as a front forward, was probably one of the best games I've seen him play for Liverpool. They looked dangerous. Trent was in his element. I think, was he now 25? That was his 11th Champions League assist for the opening goal. A lot there for Liverpool to be very pleased about, coming on the back of a defeat. They take control of their destination straight away. I think, listening tonight, there seems to be with the new format, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. You look at they're saying if you get 16 points, you'll qualify for the top 8. Can't see Liverpool and clubs like Liverpool wanting a 2-game playoff. And they're on their way with that tonight. A lot of very good displays within there. Maybe sometimes we don't give Virgil van Dijk the credit he deserves. A goal for him tonight, a dominant display at the back. In the build-up to the game, I saw a quote from Paolo Maldini from about 2 years ago, where he said Van Dijk could one day be recognised as one of the greatest defenders of all time. And I don't think you can really get praise beyond that. Good on the ball, strong in the air, a really good leader, a proper Rolls Royce of a player, and kind of leads that Liverpool team. And they look not quite imperious. I don't think AC Milan have had a good enough start to the season to say that, but they look really, really impressive tonight. That was the way they wanted to start their Champions League campaign. Definitely
great comeback after Pulisic's third-minute goal for Milan. Craig, back page of the Times. Van Dijk jump starts a new era with that headed goal, but Konate with the equaliser as well. I suppose after the North London derby, are we seeing the importance of the set pieces now more than ever at the top level?
As if Liverpool don't need enough threats. I think Martin touched on it there, but they've had 24 attempts on goal tonight. And when they bring in players like Diaz and Nunes off the bench, and then later Kane, and you look at the starting front three that they had, for then the 2 centre-halves to step up and score goals from set pieces just shows you how dangerous they are. And you looked at, coming out of Saturday's game, and you go back a week, we were reading all about the secrets to slot ball and the brilliant start and everything else. And then they go and lose against Forest on Saturday, and the narrative just slightly changes a little bit, and all of a sudden questions are being asked in the preview pieces this morning, and they go behind after 3 minutes. But I thought the response, as Martin touched on, was brilliant. And the midfield three there, McAllister, Gravenbach and Szoboszlai, for all of the discourse last year around Liverpool's midfield and the need to bring in the midfield, I thought they were absolutely fantastic. They controlled the game, allied with the solidity at the back, the goal scorers at the back, and the threat they've got up front. It wasn't quite a crisis after Saturday, but there was a lot of noise around it. Just on that, I don't think that was as much Liverpool losing the game. I think it was more Forest winning the game. I thought Forest were absolutely fantastic, and that was perhaps a little early warning to Arne Slot that you've actually got to work really hard tactically to win every game in the Premier League. You can't just turn up at home, even against some of the so-called lesser lights. But no, tonight there we saw what Liverpool are about. I thought they were fantastic.
Certainly were. Great comeback, great response to the Forest defeat. Back page of the Mirror, Van Siro. Again, it's Virgil van Dijk pictured once again. Virgil drives from the back and front to give Slot the perfect birthday and a winning start in Europe. Got some cracking fixtures, haven't they, Martin, to come? Real Madrid, Bayer Leverkusen. I suppose Liverpool's fixture is probably an advert for the new stage format, which we'll talk about. But what chance of Liverpool going deep? They've got this affinity, haven't they? Not quite Real Madrid level, but certainly the best of any English club.
No, sure. You have to be, I think, at Anfield on a Champions League night to see what this competition means to them, to see how important it is in the fabric of their history. And every player who comes and joins Liverpool gets that kind of hammered into them straight away. You could see how much they were reveling in the atmosphere tonight of San Siro. It was a little bit fractious, not the greatest start for them, but that was consummate professionalism, and they will fancy their chances of going deep into the competition. Reading previews beforehand, Arne Slot was very much doesn't want to rotate his team, which is generally perceived to be the only way to do that this season. But it seems to be working in terms of creating hunger for those that were picked tonight. Darwin Núñez came on and possibly was one of the few elements tonight where you thought he hasn't done himself any favours as he's trying to put pressure on the more recognised forwards now at Liverpool. So we will see. I suspect Liverpool will probably look to think we can win this group. We can go through. We can go deep in this competition. But it is a new manager. We have to remember that. I'm sure we'll come to it about the fatigue of the Premier League as well, and watching Premier League teams deep in the competition at the end of last season, they looked exhausted. And I was in Atlanta when they played Liverpool, and Szoboszlai, who I think is a great player, just looked out on his feet when he was trying to do some of those powerful runs. So managing this squad, managing yet more football games will be one of the challenges for every Premier League manager this season. But this is a good start to their European campaign, and it's a club that has such a fondness for the competition as well. I think it was vital for Arne Slot to get that win tonight.
Interesting stuff, Craig. Quickly on Szoboszlai, the Eye has him pictured actually, or certainly the headline, Szoboszlai the boss, is their headline. Do you think that Slot's new way of playing could preserve the midfield energy just a little bit more than maybe Jurgen Klopp's gegenpress, the heavy metal football?
Well, you look at Szoboszlai last season, he came in and he had that wonderful start, didn't he? He won all the plaudits through August and September. And he then faded. Now, you could say that's one of two factors. Is it just a foreign player getting used to the pace of the Premier League, or is it allied also to the fact that you're playing in a Jurgen Klopp team as well? And I think it was both of those factors coming together. Now, given another year of exposure, another year of adaptation, coupled with the style that perhaps isn't as intense, I think we probably will see a different Szoboszlai over the course of a whole season. And again, I touched on it at the very top there. I thought he was the pick of the players tonight. I thought he was superb.
Yeah, very, very good for Liverpool. 3-1 win. And some tragic news we should mark. You may have seen it on the back page of the Times we flashed up before. It was announced shortly before the match had kicked off at the San Siro that a lifelong Liverpool fan had passed away in Italy. Liverpool confirming the tragic news that 51-year-old Philip Dooley had lost his life following a road traffic accident in Bergamo in the early hours of Tuesday. All our thoughts with Philip Dooley's family at this time. OK, let's talk about Aston Villa's return to the top tier of European competition for the first time in 41 years. The Telegraph, just at the bottom of their sports supplement, has the headline, Villa pay perfect tribute to Shaw. Of course, Gary Shaw, the star of the show in 1982, tragically passing away this week. And Villa enjoy happy return as Emery dedicates victory to Shaw, is the headline there on the Telegraph inside the supplement. How perfect tonight, I suppose, Martin, was it for Villa? It wasn't the romance of a giant, but perhaps that was what was needed to get that big win.
Well, a bit of context here. Gary Shaw's former teammate, Peter With, was the last player to score in this competition for Aston Villa, and he's 73, and that was 41 years ago. This is a big step for them coming back into this competition, and they were absolutely brilliant tonight. Again, bar a 10-minute spell at the beginning, maybe is where they were getting used to the plastic pitch in Switzerland. From then on, they took control. Unai Emery has just such a good record in cup competitions. 3-time Europa League winner with Sevilla, once with Villarreal, won 4 domestic cups with PSG. He just seems to know he changed his plans and his formula so that Aston Villa arrived the night before so they could get used to the pitch. And from then, you're just watching players play with confidence and verve all over the field. Big fan of Morgan Rogers. It was at Aston Villa's game against Arsenal when he caused them all kinds of problems. And a big surprise that he didn't get included in Lee Carsey's England squad, but he will because he's powerful, causes teams problems. Ollie Watkins was a threat. John McGinn just runs endlessly, but they all know what they're doing. You're watching Konza get better all the time. Martinez, just imperious at the back. Really, really strong all over the field. And for this to have been their first appearance at that level for so long, it didn't look it at all. They will be going home tonight absolutely delighted with the way they played, and so they should.
Guardian back page as well. Dream return, Craig. Villa's tough Champions League lesson for young boys. They are the Swiss champions. We often see them, don't they? But does this really underscore the polarised nature of the Champions League European Cup? Villa fourth in the Premier League, but so handsomely better than the Swiss champions. It's changed a lot since 1982, hasn't it, Craig?
It has, but we even saw that, didn't we, with the game at the San Siro. We've already spoken about Liverpool's superior quality and class all over the pitch compared to Milan, who had that brilliant start and just couldn't really build on it. Now, I watched this game tonight, and I want to just pick up on something Martin said there about Morgan Rogers. Now, he came across our radar at Middlesbrough last season, and I saw bits and pieces of him. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was great. I was surprised when he then went to Aston Villa for £15 million. But wow, you can double that and add that now. I think he looks like a £30-40 million player. And as Martin touched on, I cover England as well, and Ivan Toney going to Saudi Arabia was a real disappointment because, how long can Harry Kane go on? Well, on the evidence of tonight, for a lot longer, by the way. But, these are the sort of questions we've been asking coming out of the summer. And it was only really Ollie Watkins who was left as a viable alternative. It's centre forward. I watched Morgan Rogers there tonight, and he is an England player. He's powerful, he's quick, he's got a good touch, he's direct. So playing alongside Watkins is perhaps the next cab off the rank with England. And that was my big takeaway from watching that there tonight.
Absolutely great watch there as well. Inside the Telegraph, we've seen that. The Mirror back page covering it. Unai win was for Gary. Martin, just final thought on Aston Villa. What do you think they can achieve with the Unai Emery factor? How much will he want to go one step further in the Europa League and win this one? And perhaps it will be juggling that squad, and we will get to player fatigue and possible strikes.
Well, we see, but it was interesting to watch Buendia coming off the bench, a player that we've forgotten about, a lovely footballer who I think was or might still be Aston Villa's record signing. John Durant came on, scored a goal that got disallowed, a really, really good goal, and then wound up the young boy supporters. So they're getting a little bit more depth in the squad. It's very difficult for teams with ambition like Aston Villa, and Craig and I cover Newcastle. It's very difficult to compete with within the guidelines of PSR for these clubs that have got real ambition. But with Emery there, with the players staying fit, which is going to be their big challenge, which is something we saw Newcastle struggle with last season. They just didn't have the depth. If they can avoid them kinds of serious injuries, then they'll think, why can't we certainly get to the playoff stage of this competition in 2 games, maybe a second leg at Villa Park with the crowd up for it, and they might fancy their chances of sneaking through. And they've got a coach that's really good at European football. Wonderful night coming up, isn't it? Aston Villa at home to Bayern Munich, repeat that 1982 European Cup final. We look forward to that in October. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages, focusing on Kane, mentioned there, the Champions League format, and Rodri's comments on player fatigue. And this in the Times. Rashford runs riot as Manchester United thrash Barnsley 7-0. Welcome back. You're watching Back Pages tonight, and it's welcome back. The Daily Mail's North East football correspondent Craig Hope and the Northern sports correspondent for the Times, Martin Hardy. Let's go to the Telegraph. Another Northern football correspondent, James Ducker. A busy night. Tyres players may go on strike. Rodri issues warning over football's punishing schedule. City midfielder worried amid fears of 85 match seasons. Craig, how likely is a strike in your opinion?
I would say not very likely, to be honest, but nonetheless, I think it's good that players are bringing this, making it part of the discussion, because the number of games, it's not just the effect on the players. We'll talk about the effect on the players first of all. I feel pretty strongly about this. I was at the Euros this summer, and it's a great privilege going to a European tournament. We all remember the major finals as young boys, watching on TV. It was the pinnacle, really, of the footballing calendar. Well, I was there in Germany this summer, and yes, it was great to be there. I was around England all the time, but let's be honest, guys, it wasn't very good, was it? The quality of the football. You're looking at England's best players. Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham are greatly diminished because of the seasons they've had at domestic level. And we really are diluting now the sense of occasion with the number of games. And just look at the Champions League format. I think this current format here tonight is a nonsense. I'm watching the Aston Villa game and you're watching the Liverpool game. Does it really matter whether they win, lose or draw? For being honest, I know it's nice for Liverpool to win in the San Siro, but for all of the models and all of the tests run with the new format, apparently 8 points will take you through. And let's not kid ourselves that 8 teams out of 36 go through. They don't. 24 teams out of 36 go through, because you then got the extra playoff round. Let's not call it the playoff round. It's in effect a round of 32, for want of a better phrase. And some teams might actually want that extra double header in January, don't forget, for all the revenue attached to that. So to go from a Champions League format that, yes, needed reform, but if you think the answer to get to 16 teams, rather than playing 96 games, is now to play 160 games and remove the jeopardy, and I use that phrase again, that sense of occasion in a lot of those matches, I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I think it's harming football, it's harming players, it's, even us guys as well, I covered 82 matches last season, and Martin will tell you the quality tailed off towards the end. Now, this might sound a little bit like turkeys voting for Christmas, because we want to go to football matches. It's a privilege and we love it. But there's just too much of it now. There really is. And I'm glad Rodri has come out and said what he did, because we really are damaging this brilliant, beautiful game that we all love. There's just too much of it.
OK, well, the headline on the back page of the Mail, "We will strike." Jack Gordon says Rodri threat as rebellion grows over extra games. What's your position here, Martin? Is the quality being demeaned because of player fatigue and just the amount of matches? Or do you think players like Rodri should, I don't know, just go and speak to their manager and ask for a rest rather than come out in public?
No, I completely support Rodri to go back to that game in Atlanta, and it's about midnight in the stadium, and Jurgen Klopp was asked after Liverpool had been knocked out of the Europa League, is there a problem with English teams now? And he kind of sighed and went off on one, and he said, I watched the Bundesliga, I watched La Liga. He said, none of them come close to the Premier League for intensity. He said, but you are just asking too much from us now. For Rodri, he has said between 40 and 50 games per season is that what should be the optimum for players. And he said, we could be getting asked to do 60 to 70 games this season. And I think, as Paul Hurst and Doug has said there in the story, in theory, Man City could play 85 games this season, another 4 potentially in the Champions League if they were not to finish in the top 8. You are taking any rest away from the footballers. Erling Haaland is the example, had a break in the summer, got rid of an injury to his foot, absolutely flying this season and looks even more unstoppable than ever. You have to give the players a break. Now, Big Will Delaney was writing in the Independent today, and he said, you're going to finish the Champions League final. You then will have international football. 2 weeks after the Champions League final, you're going to start the new World League of clubs, and the players are going to be asked to perform again and again. And you've got this kind of battle behind the scenes of UEFA and FIFA trying to dominate club football. And the people that are suffering are the players, and ultimately the fans will suffer because the quality will drop, which is what you saw towards the end of the season. What Craig has fairly forcibly expressed there, the standards drop because the players are just too tired to go on. It'd be really interesting to see if the players do reach the point where they say we're going on strike, and to see what kind of legal position we end up in there. But the players are saying to everybody, will you please play us a little bit less? And nobody seems to be listening.
Yeah, big problem for the best players in the world as well. Craig, you mentioned Harry Kane before on the Euro. Certainly seems to have come back refreshed for the new season. 4 goals, including a hat-trick of penalties. We can see the back of the Express. Bottom of the page there, spot on Kane's pen treble. Where does he stand in the pantheon of English greats now, Craig? He surpasses Wayne Rooney as top English goal scorer in the Men's Champions League.
Well, let's just go back 7 days. And I was at Wembley for the Finland game, and I've been out in Dublin as well. And as I've already mentioned, I was at the Euros with England, and Harry Kane didn't have a very good tournament. Personally, in my own copy and on this show as well, I was very critical. Then last week in Dublin, I think I gave him a 5 out of 10. And the first half against Finland, I was, at half time, we're talking, what's wrong with him? Where does he go from here? Well, in the 2.5 games since, he's scored 9 goals. So there you go. I think there's a lot of life left in him yet. And listen, I love him. I think he's Martin would have dealt with him as well. He's just, he stops, he talks in the mix zones to us guys. Not that's a measure of a great player at all. What he does on the pitch is far more important. But he just carries himself so well. He's a brilliant ambassador for himself, for his country, for any club he represents. And wow, what a response after that summer and a little bit of a sticky start of the season to come out the way he has done and to take these records and continue breaking records. But the one he needs now, and he admitted this to us in the summer, he just needs that team trophy. And he's in the right place to achieve that. And why not be the Champions League? That would be the ultimate way to break that duck, wouldn't it? Great start for him.
Indeed, dismantling the Croatian champions Dinamo Zagreb 9-2, and they have that Villa game to come. Top of the Bundesliga, looking good for Harry Kane. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford, hoping to be in the next England squad, I'd imagine, with Harry Kane. Rashford runs riot, the headline at the top of the Times. Very small as well. I have to peer a little bit at home, get closer to the screen. But there you can see it pictured at the top. What about this, Martin? We've only got about minutes. So what do you make of the last couple of wins for United? Yes, Barnsley in League One. Yes, Southampton at the weekend. But are there signs of a Rashford and a United revival?
I'd rather be a lucky manager than a brilliant manager. And Erik ten Hag got very lucky against Southampton at the weekend when a penalty was missed and game spanned. Today, Ugo plays, Rashford plays, Garnacho plays, Anthony plays. He may have expressed himself forcibly, not dissimilar to Craig, with Craig's colleague Ian Ladyman in a press conference at Man United when he said, "I've won second only to Pep Guardiola in terms of trophy since I've been here." He knows the Cups have kept him in a job and he's pushing hard to stay there via the same route. I'm not convinced by them with their league form at all. A player that I do like is Marcus Rashford. Obviously missed out on the Euros. You want him to come back hungry. I was a bit concerned when I saw he thought he was being picked on by former Man United players. If you don't perform week in, week out at Manchester United, that's what's going to happen. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, he was absolutely brilliant. And the hope would be for him and for Erik ten Hag and Man United that he gets back to that form.
Fingers crossed for him. Craig, Martin, thank you very much tonight. Good to see you.